Hello, thank you for joining us on the news. I'm Ruth Aguele. My sign language interpreter is Taiwo Ozoma. Let's start with the headlines. President Tinubu receives report on Ogoni consultation with advocacy for resumption of oil exploration. Vice President Shettima holds bilateral meetings with Namibian President and Gates Foundation at ATF Unger. And still on Unger, talks on security matters and ways to end Russia-Ukraine war and Gaza-Palestine war dominated the floor. With full acknowledgement of the commitment of the Tinubu's administration towards addressing their challenges in the last 2 years, leaders in Ogoni land have unanimously expressed readiness to support resumption of oil exploration in their land. This is part of the recommendations in the report on Ogoni consultations presented by the Dialogue Committee to President Bola Tinubu at the State House.
Continue to abide with us. I urge the Ogoni people across the clans, communities, and generations to close ranks. Put this dark chapter behind us. I move forward as a united community with single voice reconciliation. It's not an erasure of history. It is the commitment to write the next chapter together with joy. I'm encouraged by the overwhelming consensus of the Ogoni communities to welcome the resumption of oil production under new equitable terms, resourceful commitment. Government will deploy every resource to support the Ogoni people in this march towards shared prosperity. It will be inclusive.
All right, let's take you to the ATF Unger, where we hear Vice President Kashim Shettima has played host to the President of Namibia, Nandi Ndaitwah, on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly, where both leaders engaged in bilateral talks. The Namibian leader announced her planned official visit to Nigeria. The Vice President, in a high-level session, also met with a delegation from the Gates Foundation, led by the CEO, Mark Suzman. State House correspondent Abdurrahman Jibrila reports.
The Namibian leader, who assumed office March 21, 2025, commended Nigeria's diplomats for their invaluable contributions to her government and country. Acknowledging Nigeria's leadership role among Africa member states, she found it appropriate to leverage on the Unger opportunity to meet with Vice President Kashim Shettima to establish more mutual ties. Vice President Kashim Shettima reaffirmed Nigeria's commitment to deepening bilateral relations with Namibia, saying Nigeria-Namibia relationship should be taken to the next level. In a separate high-level session, Vice President Kashim Shettima met with a delegation from the Gates Foundation, appreciating the foundation for its support in healthcare, agriculture, and financial inclusion, while calling for expanded investment in Nigeria.
Now we have crossed the Rubicon. We are on an upward trajectory. For last quarter, the economy grew by 4.3%. We are expecting that in the next 2 years we will hit 7%. We have no option than to grow. And now our foreign reserves has hit $42 billion. It's still little for a nation of Nigeria's structure, but it's still better than why we made it. There's a lot of agitation within the nation because of the fallouts of our economic policy. But it's a maturation process. It's a price that we all have to pay for the nation to be stabilized.
We have some specific aspirations to really scale up the Kavame's domestic seed production in Nigeria and ultimately have it wholly domestically produced at a much lower cost. And then also wanted to make sure we touched on some of our broader work supporting your investments in human capital. That's both in education and in health more broadly. As you've heard from Mr. Gates, and I know you yourself have been helping drive a human capital development strategy. We think those are, the most essential investments in the citizens of Nigeria.
What I wanted to now put to the table to the Gates Foundation is your.
Nigeria's Minister of Education appealed for greater Gates Foundation support in education, especially in the areas of technology and artificial intelligence. The Gates Foundation has signed a new grant with the Central Bank of Nigeria to support related initiatives, saying Nigeria is one of the foundation's strongest partners on the African continent. From New York, Abraham Jibrila, NTA News.
The ongoing 80th United Nations General Assembly, security matters and how to end the Russia-Ukraine war and the Gaza-Palestine war dominated the floor. From Apai reports.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky told the UN Security Council that China could pressure Russia to end the war in his country following a U.S. call for Beijing to stop buying Moscow's oil. China is not a party to the conflict, but Kyiv has long complained that Beijing has supplied items to Moscow that can be used in its war against Ukraine and continues to purchase Russian energy.
If China truly wanted this war to stop, it could compel Moscow to end the invasion. Without China, Putin's Russia is nothing.
During his speech to the UN General Assembly, Chile's President Gilbert Boric announced that Chile will nominate former President Michelle Bachelet as candidate for the UN Secretary General. Addressing the historical gender imbalance in the United Nations, where no woman has ever been Secretary General, is also a pending issue, says Boric before announcing the nomination. And South African President Cyril Ramaphosa criticizes some countries using trade policies as a weapon of war and others of using unilateral military action in violation of international law during a speech at the United Nations General Assembly gathering of the world leaders in New York.
An unprecedented trade policy volatility are destabilizing the global economy and jeopardizing a critical source of development finance. In fact, trade is now being used as a weapon against a number of countries in the world.
On the occasion of the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly, French President Emmanuel Macron warns of the rise of armed conflicts worldwide. Meanwhile, on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly, world leaders gather at the UN Security Council for a high-level meeting on the war in Ukraine, where UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres warns of the real risk of further expansion of the conflict. He pointed to the violence in Gaza, Ukraine, Sudan, and the Democratic Republic of Congo, stressing the collective responsibility in facing these crises.
This is the clearest path to a two-state solution. Israel and an independent, sovereign, democratic, viable and contiguous state of Palestine, living side by side in peace and security on the pre-1967 lines, with Jerusalem as the capital of both states, based on international law and UN resolutions.
At the meeting, Qatar's ruler told world leaders his country was continuing with its diplomatic efforts to broker an end to the war in Gaza, despite Israel's strikes on targets in the Gulf country. Frama Pani, NTA News.
The federal government has signed a landmark memorandum of understanding with the United Arab Emirates to deploy advanced cargo information systems across Nigerian airports. This agreement aims to reposition Nigeria as a leading aviation and logistics hub in Africa. Signing the documents on behalf of the federal government, the Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development, Festus Keyamo, says the system will strengthen aviation security, streamline cargo processing, facilitate international trade, and boost Nigeria's position as a regional logistics hub. He further stated that implementation will begin with feasibility studies in October 2025, followed by a nationwide rollout in the third quarter of 2026. The minister emphasized that the partnership also seeks to build resilience, efficiency, and competitiveness in Nigeria's aviation sector leveraging cutting-edge innovation to drive trade facilitation and revenue growth. In other news, 2 former volunteers of the Nigerian Technical Aid Corps have been appointed as Vice-Chancellors and, of course, Deputy Vice-Chancellor of the University of Education in Gambia. The Director General of the agency, Dr. Buba Yusuf Yakub, disclosed this at the departure orientation for another batch of 20 volunteers heading to Liberia. Calvin Ehunwahi reports.
The appointment of the 2 professors, Dr. Buba said, is a testament to the positive impact the scheme is making in benefiting countries, noting that their success will serve as inspiration to the new batch heading to Liberia to add value to that country. He attributed the new paradigm in the agency's activities and increase in the pace of deployment to the support of President Bola Tinubu, who has placed priority in soft power diplomatic tool of NTAC.
Nigeria, we have a great people, a great population, over 250 million, and the demography is also very healthy. Over 70% well educated, and that is where wherever we find ourselves, we make exploits. And before now, we also have in the University of Technology in Gambia and some set of volunteers that are also appointed Vice Chancellor and Deputy Vice Chancellor. So it's a very good thing, and I want to encourage the volunteers going out there to also fly our flags high.
It's a lot to me and my other co-volunteer that we have this opportunity to represent Nigeria, to showcase the skill and abundant resources we have in our country.
The forum was also used to receive 14 other volunteers back home for Liberia after their successful 2-year service in that country. In Abuja, Kelvin Ehunwahi, NTA News.
Nigeria and Sudan are set to deepen media collaboration in order to collectively project positive narratives about both countries. This was the outcome of a meeting between the management Voice of Nigeria and the Chargé d'Affaires of Sudanese Embassy in Nigeria. Let's hear from Chukunonso Mwabweze.
The visit to the Sudanese embassy in Abuja, Director General Voice of Nigeria, Von Jibril Babandache, said is to rekindle long-standing cordial partnership between VON and Sudanese Broadcasting Corporation, especially in the agency's Arabic language broadcast, capacity building, exchange programs, as well as content creation, leveraging the similarity of culture of the 2 nations.
I noticed that there was a gap, and I thought that it's important that I reconnect Voice of Nigeria with one of its key international partners, which is Sudanese Broadcasting Corporation through you. Even though we recognize that we're in the age of information technology, we're very determined to build an inclusive media space where all Nigerian Africans will be able to choose whatever platform they want to listen to us.
On his part, the Chargé d'Affaires Ahmed Omar Tabu affirmed Sudanese government's commitment towards strengthening the historic and special relationship that exists between Nigeria and Sudan.
We have actually a lot of things to do together, not only to rebuild the relation with the embassy, but also to reconnect you with the Sudanese broadcasting.
With a strong endorsement and recommendation, the Chargé d'Affaires also assured the delegation that the embassy will be conveying the request of VON to re-establish a more robust working collaboration with the Sudanese Broadcasting Corporation. Chukunonso Mwabweze, NTN News.
4 years after the military seized power, voters in a Guinea referendum have chosen to implement a new constitution with 89% supporting the charter. Framapai reports.
This new constitution paves the way for elections in the West African country, but also permits General Mamadi Doumbouya, its junta leader, to run for president. The yes vote won with 89.4% of ballots, according to the official provisional results announced by Ibrahima Khalil Konde, Minister of Territorial Administration and Decentralization. Final results will be announced by the Supreme Court at an unspecified date. The opposition, many of whose leaders are based abroad, had called for a boycott, describing the vote as a power grab with predetermined result. Despite their plea, Guineans flooded the polls, with the majority interviewed by journalists stating they had voted to move forward with the new constitution. Others who spoke were divided between hoping for the return of civilian rule under a new constitution and supporting the junta leader and his potential candidacy in a future presidential election. Campaigning had been strong in the referendum's yes camp. Rallies, marching bands and posters depicting 40-year-old Umbaya were prevalent throughout the country. The no campaign was virtually non-existent, mainly carried out on social media and often led by junta's critics in exile. Authorities deployed 45,000 members of the security forces across the country on Sunday for the vote, along with 1,000 light and armored vehicles and combat helicopters, the National Gendarmerie said. The new constitution will replace the country's transitional charter introduced by the military government that had prohibited any junta member from running for election. Meanwhile, Malawi's president, Lazarus Chakwera, has conceded defeat to former President Peter Mutharika, acknowledging the will of the people and respecting the constitution. Mutharika took an overwhelming lead with more than 65% of valid votes cast in the September 16 election. The candidate needs 50% plus one vote to be declared the winner in Malawi.
From those official results, it was clear that my main rival, His Excellency Professor Arthur Peter Mutharika of the Democratic Progressive Party, had already secured an insurmountable lead and is the presumptive winner of the presidential election.
Chakwera's concession came hours before an official declaration of results by the country's Electoral Commission. Frama Panyi, NTA News.
All right, let's take a break. We'll be back shortly. Stay tuned.
Nigeria at 65, a continental giant takes another step forward, navigating the contradiction fueled by a colorful and resourcefully diverse populace. Yet questions linger on the destination of state, propelled by the vagaries of nationhood. What is your contribution to this journey? Join the NTA and an eclectic mix of everything Nigerian, from the academic deans to the street kings, who will lend their voices on the platform that has always been a part of the journey. The NTA on October 1st, 2025.
Thank you for staying tuned. In less than 4 months since its establishment, Leisure Hospital Abuja has successfully carried out a cochlear implant surgery, marking a significant milestone in its journey towards excellence in healthcare delivery. The Chief Medical Director of the hospital, Professor Adiga Samuel Adoga, described the achievement as a strong testament to the facility's commitment to providing top-quality medical services in line with global best practices. Chukunonso Nwabueze reports.
This breakthrough in cochlear implant surgery highlights Leisure Hospital's dedication to advancing specialized healthcare in Nigeria, offering patients closer access to world-class medical solutions. With great specialty in the treatment of ear, nose and throat ENT conditions, the hospital boasts of highly trained professionals as well as advanced equipment to effectively handle emergencies.
This hospital is only 3.5 months old, and carrying out this kind of level of surgery here is a great achievement. It is a very successful surgery, but equally very expensive. Oftentimes, it's the poor people that suffer, or majority of them that have this kind of issue requiring this cochlear implant surgery. But unfortunately, they don't have the finance for it, so a lot of them are going out there deaf. But if they can be reversed through surgery, they can greatly contribute to the economy.
As part of its commitment to growth and excellence, Leisure Hospital continues to collaborate with both local and international health institutions in order to reduce medical tourism by making world-class healthcare accessible and affordable to Nigerians.
This is one of the medical miracles of turning a deaf person to begin to hear, so that a young man that's in the prime of his life can have a bright future because it's right here, it's completely deaf. But with this surgery, he's going to be able to compete with his peers, and I tell you, the sky is the limit.
We started this process since last year, so we decided to have an implant. And inshallah, let him heal quickly because he's still a young guy, still growing up, just starting his life.
Located in Abuja, Leisure Hospital, a fully equipped medical facility with a modern laboratory, operating theatre and comprehensive healthcare services under one roof, remains dedicated to delivering trusted and cutting-edge healthcare services. Chukwunonsonwa Boeze, NTA News.
The federal government is committed to ensuring Nigeria's agricultural products meet international standards and are accepted in the global commodity markets. To support this goal, the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security has established a mini rice paddy laboratory for grading produce for both local and international markets. Musa Baba Aliyu reports.
Though it may seem modest, the mini lab will have a significant impact on Nigeria's agricultural production. The facility is equipped to grade rice paddy, measure moisture content, and assess quality.
This one peels the paddy.
The laboratory located in Fadama House was established by the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security with support from the Japan International Cooperation Agency, JICA.
Having this laboratory in place, it affords us the opportunity to actually grade our paddy according to the standards that have been laid down. The right moisture content, the right size, the right quality, like in the shockiness. So everything will be done here. And of course now, if we use this place very well, we will be able to have rice that can compete adequately with rice that is coming from Thailand, coming from Japan, coming from US. Now we can actually meet up with the standard.
The Director of Agribusiness and Marketing at the Ministry of Agriculture stated that the lab is accessible to all rice farmers and millers across the country.
The establishment of this facility demonstrates the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security's commitment to strengthening the rice value chain, empowering farmers, and ensuring that Nigerian agricultural produce meets both domestic and international market standards.
Key stakeholders in the rice production value chain and various associations have praised the initiative, noting that it will enable Nigeria to penetrate international markets without obstacles. Musa Baba Aliyu, NTA News.
Karo urban area is a stone's throw away from the city center, yet it is faced with indiscriminate waste dump and poor sanitation. For residents, the consequences are there. Their health and quality of life hangs in a balance with the stench of rotten waste which fills the air. Osman Zubeiru reports.
Karu and its embryos are settlement just about 5 kilometers away from the Federal Capital Territory. Residents of the area are mostly civil servants. A drive to some of the major axes in Karu tells a picture of indiscriminate waste disposal and growing heaps of refuse with unpleasant smell emanating from it, which chokes the atmosphere of the area. Most disturbing is this large waste dump site along Karu Cemetery, which is not only an eyesore to motorists and passers-by, and a huge health risk to residents.
Before, they used to pack this dustbin every week. But now, this dustbin sometimes she will be more than 2 months or 3 months before they pack it.
A serious burden to us around this environment, because anytime you're passing through this area, the stench that we perceive, I don't know, but I think it is really dangerous to our health.
While scavengers smile from the profits they make from the scrap plastic, however, the accumulated waste in Karu is raising fears of possible disease outbreaks.
It has a lot of implications to human health
there are so much airborne diseases coming out from there, which can lead to so many syndromes.
And it causes sickness like cancer, cancer of the lungs. It causes a lot of diseases.
While expecting government action to halt indiscriminate disposal of waste, a resident in Karu insists that only a total clearing of the refuse will restore cleanness, safety, and calm their minds. In Abuja, Usman Zubairu, NTA News.
It is a new dawn for Nigeria's environment as the National Oil Spill Detection and Response Agency pledges tougher action and renewed commitment to clean up spill sites and restore ecosystems. Justin Bem Onye reports the agency is rolling out sweeping reforms to rebuild public trust.
It is a fresh start at Nostra, and the message is clear. Nigeria's environment must be protected. Board Chairman Edward Omoerewa says the agency is rolling out bold reforms to win back public trust and restore communities devastated by oil pollution. At an inaugural strategy meeting in Abuja, Omoerewa charged board members and management staff to raise performance standards, boost regulatory enforcement, and hold polluters accountable.
My vision for NOSRA is for people to be aware of an organization, an agency that has come out to prove itself. It would have the powers to be able to monitor, inspect, and punish people who try to pollute our environment.
We believe that the board is just a complementary body to work with us, and for us, we are prepared to collaborate with them in a very robust way to ensure that the policies and the core mandate of this agency is being achieved.
Constituted by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the new board is tasked with strong oversight and rapid response to oil spill disasters. Omoerewa also unveiled Nostra's three-point agenda: improve communication with stakeholders.
Well, that's the much we can take for that report. But just before we go, let's find out how Thursday's weather will fare. And that concludes the news. Thank you for your time. I'm Ruth Aguele. My sign language interpreter is Taiwo Ozoma. Bye.